He doesn't want my V*G*, not anymore after 60. For ways to change that. He'll love it. Life after 60 isn't the end. It's the beginning of a new, deeper kind of beauty. But what happens when your partner no longer sees that beauty in you? When the spark fades and the mirror starts asking harder questions. This story isn't about heartbreak. It's about rebirth. Because one woman refused to settle for being overlooked. When he stopped reaching for her, she didn't cry. She transformed. He didn't want her anymore. Until she did these 4 things. And what happened next? He saw her, truly saw her, like it was the very first time. Before we get started, I'd love it if you'd give this video a like. It helps me keep sharing important lessons. If you're not already subscribed, I encourage you to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on new videos. Also, if you like this video, write a 1 in the comments and a 0 if you don't, so I know what can be improved. So, here we go. 1. Total reset. The body he didn't expect. The change didn't start with a magazine article or some television show promising youth in 10 days. It started with silence. One ordinary Tuesday morning, she stood in the bathroom, brushing her teeth like always, and paused. She caught her own reflection. Not the kind of glance she was used to, the quick, dismissive kind, but a real, lingering look. What she saw startled her. Her robe, once plush and comforting, now hung like armor, heavy, shapeless, colorless. Her shoulders were slightly rounded forward, her steps small and slow. The glow in her face had dimmed, not from time, but from forgetting herself. And the worst part? She realized she hadn't truly touched her own skin, hadn't admired it, scented it, caressed it with kindness, in years. She had become functional, predictable, familiar, and in a way, invisible. Not just to him, but to herself. So that morning, she did something she hadn't done in decades. She opened her drawer and pulled out a bottle of rose-scented lotion she'd bought on a whim but never used. Slowly, deliberately, she rubbed it into her arms, her hands, her neck. It wasn't about moisturizing. It was about remembering. Then she tossed the robe on the bed. She put on a simple, soft cotton wrap. Nothing fancy, just something that hugged her a little at the waist and hinted at the curve of her collarbone. A light pink tint on her lips. No foundation. Just a bit of glow. At first it felt silly. Even self-indulgent. But by the 3rd day, she started looking forward to it. By the 5th, she started feeling different. Her energy changed. She walked taller, not faster. She moved with intention, not to rush, not to impress, but to feel present in her own skin. She found a short beginner's stretching routine on her tablet and did it barefoot every morning in the kitchen while her tea steeped. Somewhere between the shoulder rolls and the gentle hip sways, she began to feel alive. And then came the mirror. One evening, after putting on music to tidy the bedroom, she caught herself swaying to the beat. At first, it was just her hands folding laundry to rhythm. Then her hips joined in. Before she knew it, she was dancing, fully, playfully, alone, in front of the mirror. She laughed. A real, deep laugh. It had been years. And that's when he saw her. He was passing by the bedroom door and paused. There she was, not posing, not pretending, just moving, light on her feet, radiant in the lamplight. The scent of lavender drifted toward him. She didn't notice him at first. But he noticed everything. The soft glow of her skin. The curve of her back. The way her fingers moved through the air like music lived inside them. He didn't say anything. Not yet. But something shifted in his chest. It wasn't just attraction. It was memory. Of the woman he'd first met. The way she used to smile before she even spoke. The way her presence could fill a room without a word. Except this time, it wasn't a memory. She was standing right there, more real than ever. That night, she noticed the change. He brushed against her when they passed in the hallway. He lingered at the dinner table just a little longer. His eyes, once dulled with routine, had found her again. But here's the secret. She wasn't doing it for him. She was doing it for her. The body he saw wasn't new, it was reclaimed. And what caught his attention wasn't just her skin or scent or silhouette, it was her energy, her quiet self-possession, her decision to stop waiting and start being. She had reset, not just her wardrobe, but her entire presence. And he felt it in the most primal way. He wanted her again. Not because she asked to be wanted, but because she remembered she already was. 2. The forbidden game. I'm not available. He had gotten used to her always being there. Always reachable. Always accommodating. Like a favorite chair in the corner of the room. Comfortable, reliable, and easy to ignore. But then one day, the rhythm changed. She wasn't home when he expected her to be. Her phone went to voicemail. There was no note on the table, no casserole in the oven, no quiet humming from the hallway. Just silence. And for the first time in years, he noticed the silence. When she returned that evening, hair tousled by the breeze, a light flush on her cheeks, she didn't offer explanations. Just a smile and the scent of warm vanilla drifting behind her. She walked past him, humming something unfamiliar, and disappeared into the bedroom. He blinked. Something had shifted. The woman who used to revolve around his world had *n spinning on her own axis. The next few days were full of surprises. She had a lunch date with a friend from her yoga class. She spent hours in the garden, phone left deliberately inside. She turned down a movie night with a gentle, "Not tonight, I'm in the middle of a book I can't put down." And just like that, the roles reversed. He found himself watching the clock, wondering when she'd return. He peeked through the blinds when a car pulled into the driveway. He opened the fridge and saw ingredients, not meals, and felt a pang of confusion. What was happening? She had stopped announcing her schedule. She had stopped asking if he needed anything. She had stopped making herself available. And he, once secure, once distracted, began to feel something unexpected. Curiosity. Where was she going with that new scarf around her neck? Who was she texting with a private smile curled on her lips? What song was she humming while dressing up with no plans she cared to share? It wasn't jealousy, not yet. It was something older, deeper. Longing. He remembered it from the early years, that sense of pursuit, of wondering how to win her time, her laughter, her touch. She was a mystery again. Not because she became someone else, but because she stopped handing herself over so easily. Even the way she looked at him changed. There was warmth, but it wasn't pleading. There was love, but it wasn't need. She no longer waited for his gaze. She moved as if the whole world was watching. And he was watching. One night, he saw her walking across the hallway in a long silk robe he hadn't seen in years. Her perfume, the one he had once bought her on their anniversary, floated through the air like a secret invitation. But she didn't turn back. She left him with the scent, the memory, and a locked door. He sat alone in the living room, heart ticking louder than the clock. Where had this woman come from? She was the same, but not. She was his, but distant. Familiar, but unreadable. And that's when the ache hit him. He missed her. Not the routine. Not the convenience. Her voice. Her energy. Her warmth. But now, she wasn't offering it. She had pulled back, not out of bitterness, but out of quiet power. She wasn't punishing him. She was reintroducing herself. He began to feel what he hadn't felt in a long time. Desire. Mixed with uncertainty. The need to earn her time again. To impress her. To win her. Because here's the thing about long-term love. We stop playing the game. We assume the prize is already ours. But she had changed the rules. She was no longer waiting to be wanted. And in doing so, she became the one thing every man craves. Not someone available on demand. But someone worth pursuing. 3. Memory trick. Bring back his fantasies. It wasn't that he had fallen out of love. It's just that the years had stacked up. days bleeding into weeks, routines replacing passion, and memories collecting dust like old records no one played anymore. But she remembered. And not in the way most people do, with words, reminders, or teary-eyed remember when conversations. No, she recreated it. It started with a box tucked in the back of the closet. Inside, a silky red slip, barely worn. A pair of earrings she'd almost given away. And at the bottom, folded neatly, a single photograph, her and him, laughing on their honeymoon balcony, her hair still damp from the sea air. She didn't cry. She didn't sigh. She smiled. Because she knew exactly what to do. The next evening, he came home to the sound of music playing softly from the bedroom. Not just any music, but that song. The one they used to dance to in the kitchen before the kids, before the grey hairs, before the mortgage. It had been years since that melody echoed through their home. And as he stepped closer, something happened. Time bent. Memory stirred. Then, she appeared. Wearing the red slip, no words, just presence. Her hair softly pinned, lips glossed with the same berry color she wore the first time he kissed her under the porch light. Around her neck, the necklace he bought her on their 5th anniversary, the one he thought she'd lost. He froze. Not because of surprise, but because of recognition. For a moment, she wasn't the woman he had breakfast with every day. She was the woman he used to chase. She held out her hand, not demanding, not coaxing, just open. He took it. And there they were, slow dancing in the hallway. No audience. No occasion. Just two people remembering with their bodies what their minds had nearly forgotten. Later that week, she found his old cologne online, the one he wore back when she used to sneak his jacket just to smell it. When it arrived, she didn't mention it. She just gave him a kiss on the cheek and walked away. That night, he put it on. Without asking why. The next day, she made his favorite dessert. The one she hadn't baked in over a decade. The one from that messy little kitchen in their first apartment. He stared at the plate, blinked, and smiled like a boy. Piece by piece, she was weaving their past into the present, not by dragging it forward, but by setting the stage for it to arrive naturally. She understood something powerful. Men don't miss moments. They miss feelings. And those feelings live in texture, in scent, in sound, in rhythm. She wore the perfume that drove him wild when they were young. She walked by him with that same slow sway, like she had secrets. She kissed him longer, not out of duty, but out of intention. One morning, he found an old record on the turntable. He sat down, listening. The scratchy, soulful melody brought him back to a time when her laughter filled every corner of their little home. He looked up at her differently that day. She hadn't changed the past. She had brought it to life. And that's when it happened. The fantasy returned. Not because she became someone new, but because she reawakened the woman he had once dreamed about. And here's the magic. His body didn't know the difference between memory and presence. It just felt desire. Because while time may soften skin and silver the hair, desire isn't bound by calendars. It's sparked by mystery, by confidence, by scent, by sound, by space to feel again. She had stopped asking him to remember. Instead, she invited him to relive. And he did, fully, eagerly, all over again. 4. Silent power. I'm a woman, not a function. There was a time when her entire day revolved around what he needed. His breakfast. His dry cleaning. His reminders. His moods. She had become a list of roles. Cook, nurse, scheduler, helper. And somewhere along the way, the woman underneath had become invisible, even to herself. But not anymore. It didn't happen in a dramatic moment. No slammed doors. No shouting matches. Just a quiet, steady shift. She stopped rushing to answer when he called from the other room. She no longer dropped everything to search for his missing keys. And when he grumbled about dinner not being ready on time, she looked up, calm and centered, and said, "You're welcome to start it if you'd like." No heat. No sarcasm. Just truth. Because here's what she'd realized. She was not born to orbit his needs. She began reclaiming her mornings. While he read the paper, she unrolled a soft mat in the living room and started yoga. Not the kind you see in magazines, but gentle stretches that honored her body. At first, he scoffed. "You're going to twist yourself into a pretzel at your age?" She smiled. "At my age, I can finally choose how I move." She joined a women's circle at the community center. Not a gossip group, but a space where women her age talked about books, aging, intuition, desire, and the quiet grief of being overlooked. She didn't rush home to tell him about it. She let the glow on her face speak for itself. Then came the meditation. At first, just 5 minutes each morning. Eyes closed. Palms resting open. Breathing, not for stress relief, but to return to herself. The woman who used to ask, "What do you need?" now asked herself, "What do I want today?" She started painting again, not for display, not for perfection. Just colors on canvas. Blues and golds and rust reds. Feelings that had no words but found expression through her hands. And then, the men noticed. Not strangers. Not admirers. Just people at the coffee shop, the library, the co-op. Men who nodded, complimented her scarf, asked what she was reading. It wasn't flirtation. It was something more powerful. Recognition. She was glowing. Not from makeup or clothing, but from energy. From self-respect. From living a life that was hers again. And he saw it. He saw the way others leaned in when she spoke. The way her laugh came from deep inside. The way she walked into a room as if the world had finally remembered who she was. He saw the woman he once fell in love with, but through new eyes. Not just as his wife, or the mother of his children, or the keeper of the house, but as a universe. One he had once been invited into, and could lose if he didn't wake up. The shift was undeniable. He stopped calling her only when he needed something. He started asking where she was going. He began noticing her again, not out of habit, but out of awe. Because for the first time in years, she was not available on demand. She wasn't chasing, fixing, proving, or waiting. She had become something rare. A woman with a full, private world. And he, the man who had once taken her for granted, realized what was truly at stake. It wasn't just her body. It wasn't even just her affection. It was her essence. Her soul. Her presence. She hadn't left him. But she had returned to herself. And in doing so, she became the kind of woman no man can ignore. Not because she asks to be wanted, but because she has remembered what it feels like to want herself. Conclusion. The return of desire. He didn't come back because she asked him to. He didn't come back out of duty, habit, or guilt. He came back because he couldn't stay away. Not from her body, though he longed for it now in ways he hadn't felt in years. Not from her beauty, though it shone with a kind of radiance he couldn't quite name. But from her energy. Her presence. Her power. He watched the woman who once blended into the background now command attention without even trying. She didn't wait for compliments. She evoked them. She didn't chase affection. She drew it in. And somewhere along the way, he stopped seeing her as my wife over 60, and started seeing her as the woman I want most. Because here's the truth. Real sensuality isn't in skin-tight dresses or wrinkle-free faces. It's in the way she walks into a room without asking permission. It's in the mystery of her day, the curve of her self-trust, the ease of her laughter. It's in the strength of her boundaries, the softness of her silence, the surprise of her joy. She didn't try to get younger. She got free. Free from the need to prove her worth. Free from the burden of being everything to everyone. Free from the lie that her best years were behind her. And in that freedom she became magnetic. He wanted her again, not because she had changed for him, but because she had reclaimed herself for her. And that's the lesson, isn't it? If someone no longer sees your value, don't shrink. Don't beg. Rise. Reclaim your body. Redefine your rules. Reconnect with the woman you were before life made you small. Because when you do, everything changes. Not just how others see you, but how you see yourself. And when a woman truly sees herself, the world can't look away.